Oh boy, this is also going to be another mistake I will most likely be making after a whole year of making these videos. This time, I'm taking a look at another game from the Final Fantasy franchise. But I already took a look at Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 1. So, what other Final Fantasy games there are that I could possibly play and review that I own? I mean, I could always take a look at the City of Final Fantasy NT, but I don't feel like reviewing a fighting game. I want another Final Fantasy game that predates Final Fantasy VII. I got it! Enjoy the show. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Trash or Treasure. For this video, I'm taking a look at Final Fantasy VI. This is a JRPG developed and published by Squaresoft before changing their name to Square Enix in 2003. It was released in 1994, originally known as Final Fantasy III for North America, and it was originally released for the Super Nintendo before releasing to the PlayStation 1 in 1999, on the GBA in 2007, Virtual Console on the Wii and Wii U, the PSN, and even iOS and Android for 15 bucks. Yeah, fuck that. For this, I'm using the Super Nintendo Entertainment System Classic version released in 2017, which an uncle on my mom's side of the family gave to me. So, without further ado, is Final Fantasy VI truly better than Final Fantasy VII? Let's find out. But first, let's abridge that plot. So, over 1,000 years ago, there was some great war which almost made magic go completely extinct. And now machinery, gunpowder, all that have been discovered, and tech now reigns. Our main character we're controlling is Terra, a special gifted girl who can use magic. After raiding a town and getting rendered unconscious, we end up in an old man's house. Terra then gets flashbacks about her time in the Empire and with this odd character named Kefka Palazzo. Later we met Locke, a thief slash treasure hunter. He's basically told to find Terra and join an underground resistant movement called the Returners. So yeah, that's kind of the story from there on out. Build a resistant movement team and take down the Empire. Now, of course, forces within, mainly Kefka, have bigger plans than just bring back magic. I would tell you all the grander scope of the story, but I feel like you should play it for yourself since this is one of those lesser iconic Final Fantasy games. All you need to know that Final Fantasy VI has a bigger roster of main characters to date, with 14 of them being playable, including Setzer, who would later appear in Kingdom Hearts 2, voiced by Crispin Freeman. There's also this debate within the Final Fantasy community on who is the best antagonist, Final Fantasy VI antagonist or Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII. For me, it's always Sephiroth. But with all that out of the way, what's the gameplay like? The gameplay of Final Fantasy VI uses the Active Time Battle System, or ATB Battle System, much like games before it, mainly Final Fantasy IV and V, and many after until Final Fantasy IX. My main problem is that I feel like I'm way too open for enemy attacks. That's also because I just feel like the ATB gauge itself moves so slow. Then again, I'm more used to playing Final Fantasy VII's ×3 speed, so maybe that's why. Now visually, I still say this looks great for a 1994 SNES game. Keep in mind, it wasn't until 2009 that Final Fantasy will make a mainline numbered entry, if you count Final Fantasy IV the After Years as a mainline numbered Final Fantasy game. I say this is like playing an official RPG Maker made game, since the graphics remind me heavily of RPG Maker. primarily RPG Maker XP mixed with the ATB mechanic of RPG Maker MZ. Now in terms of music, Nobuo Uematsu strikes back again with greatness. Sure, the most iconic one is the final boss theme Dancing Mad, but after listening to the OST while making this script, I say Final Fantasy VI's OST, while not as great as 7's, it's pretty good. So overall, is Final Fantasy VI a worthwhile treasure or a piece of trash? Well, from the great pixel art of the SNES and PS1 versions, fairly good CGI cutscenes from the PS1, great soundtrack by Uematsu, the slow but good battle system, I'm giving Final Fantasy VI a 7 out of 10, with my rank of a good worthwhile treasure. Not as good as Final Fantasy VII in my opinion, but it's a good Final Fantasy game nonetheless. As always, I want to know from you all, did you play Final Fantasy VI and could you recommend it to a friend? Leave your answers in the comments below. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and turn on the bell to be notified when I make a new video. As always, my social media links are down below in the description. In case you're wondering when the next top 10 list is coming, my buddy Shay Midnight, who most likely forgot by now, is trying to find some time to edit that for me, since I don't have what I consider a good editing program. And Adobe Premiere Pro gave me a headache while I was trying to figure that out. Anyways, I've been Horror Kid. I'll see you all in the next video. Take care, everybody.